Good. This week's Torah reading, this Shabbat is going to be called Shabbat Parshat Shkalim. Shkalim. Back in the times of the Holy Temple, on the first day of Adar, everyone used to give, in the beginning of the month of Adar, everyone used to give a half of a shekel to the Holy Temple. And it talks about it 3 times in the Torah. So we're going to talk about the word shekel is mentioned 3 times. So let's understand what exactly is this giving a half of a shekel to the Holy Temple. If the pasuk says Zeyidnu machzeh shekel, this commandment God gave to Moses on Mount Sinai, and He said to Moses, "I want everybody to give a half of a shekel, and this is what you should give." This. Why did God have to say this? Give, like all the other commandments. God didn't say this is tefillin, this is a mezuzah, this with a half a shekel. He said this is what you should give. Why does it say this? State in Yerushalmi. It says in the Talmud Yerushalmi and in the Midrash, Kamin matbeya shel eish hotzia kodesh baruch hu mitachat kisei kavodo ve'areh Moshe. That God said He took out a coin made of fire from under. God took it out from under His holy throne. God took out a coin of fire from under His holy throne, and He showed it to Moses, and He said, Zeh yitnu, this is what you're supposed to give. This is what you're supposed to give. This is just a translation in Yiddish. This is what you're supposed to give for the half of a shekel. In the Tosfot, in the Talmud, in the Tosfot, as he said in Shkalim, it says, yeah. Also, it's the same thing as also in Chulin, the Gemara Chulin. So it says the Tosfot explains what's going on over there. What does it mean? God, Moses didn't know what a coin looks like. You know what a coin? By tefillin, by mezuzah, by the other things, God didn't have to take it out from under His throne and show it to him. A coin, God had to take a coin. Why a coin made of fire? Show him the coin. No, it had to be a coin made of fire. Well, people can give a coin from fire. What doesn't make any sense? And the people didn't give coins of fire. God showed Moses a coin of fire. Where did He take it from? Under His holy throne. Kisei HaKavod. He took a whole, like it was saved away. What is talking about over there? What does it mean? A fiery coin, and Moses didn't know what it was, from under the throne. In the Tosefta, it says like this: that this was the Eibishter had Moshe beweisen, that which God showed to Moses, a matbeya shel eish, a coin made of fire, is nitvel is im gewen schwer zu verstehen. It's not because Moshe didn't understand what does it mean, a half of a coin. Nor had sich gewundert, Moshe had a wonder. And it said, Via Zoe ken der Mensch given koifer oislesen by half of a shekel from his soul. What's the continuation of the sentence? It says, Ze yidnu maxis a shekel a kodesh kofer lanafsho teichem. It says this will bring a forgiveness for your soul. You did a sin, you want to get cleaned off, half of a shekel, that's it, you're finished. Moshe, that's what Moshe was amazed. Moshe said, a coin, I know what a coin is. How can it be that by giving a coin, you bring forgiveness for your soul? I mean, a person, if he does a sin, usually you do a sin because you enjoy it. I mean, you get something out of it. That enjoyment gets, how do you say, it makes like a stain in your soul. You enjoyed it. You remember, it was a good feeling, right? It was a good feeling. You want to repeat that good feeling again. Doing the Torah and the commandments, you're never going to get a good feeling from doing Torah and commandments, the same good feeling as you do from stealing, from cheating, if you do it successful. If you're a good cheat and a good thief, it's tremendous pleasure. If it wasn't a pleasure, nobody would do it. Right? You do it. You stole, you lied, you cheated. Right? It's a good feeling. To put on tefillin is also a good feeling. Not like that. So God says, oh, you did sins, you have a stain on your soul, give a half a shekel, everything's going to be okay. Moses said, I don't understand it. That makes no sense. How can a person possibly just clean off his soul like that? Or ba'ad or b'kol asher yesh liten ba'ad nafsho. It says the skin for skin, but everything that a person has, he'll give in order to save his soul. And it still doesn't reach total forgiveness. But it's just with the mercy of God that God forgives people for what they do. It's a mercy. But you want to say, no, you don't have to have mercy. You give a half of a shekel and that's it. You're finished. Moses said that's it. I mean, everybody's, like the joke about the guy who goes into the priest and he says, I did such and such a sin. And the priest said, okay, that'll cost $1,000. So he gives the priest $10,000. The priest said, I said 1,000, not 10,000. No, I'm going to do it 9 more times. I'm going to do it. As als was a mensch vermagd, gitter, everything which a person has, is willing to give in order to clean his soul. How can it possibly give? You give a half of a shekel. And what did God answer him? He said, oh, you have to give a coin is good enough, but it has to be of fire. The coin has to be fire. Oh, what does this mean? Hagam, as their Indian from Korbanos, even though the sacrifices, vosses zayin and doch, oicha kapora, it says the sacrifices also bring a certain forgiveness for sins, is gezakt gavern, nor from them, tziboy, from machzeh shekel. But complete forgiveness is only by this half of a shekel. I mean, first of all, the sacrifices only forgave for accidental sins. Purposeful sins, sacrifices did not work on. If a person did a purposeful sin, he didn't bring a sacrifice. A purposeful sin, he had to suffer or whatever. That's a whole different system of forgiveness. The sacrifices were only for accidental sins. A person did something, he didn't know the law, he didn't know it was Shabbos, whatever. A person, in order to get cleared of all the sins, he has to bring a half of a shekel. But it has to be from fire. Okay, it's still not really understood. What are you supposed to do? Take a half a shekel, and you put it over the fire for a while, and you hold it with tongs, and that's it. That brings forgiveness. What does this mean? We'll see. Bald noch Matan Torah, immediately after Torah, it already says, "V'zavachta Allah v'tolatecha v'shlomecha," and for deswegen, nevertheless, by Moshe Rabbeinu, he is no wonder. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have any wonder about the sacrifices. When God said, you do a sin, you bring a sacrifice, Moshe didn't say, how can it be that a sacrifice, that an animal is going to, Moshe didn't wonder about that. But as soon as God said this thing of the half a shekel, then Moshe Rabbeinu had this big question. How can it possibly be that a coin will bring forgiveness for the soul? Why didn't he have the same question about the sacrifice? The sacrifices also bring forgiveness for the soul. If so, Moses wondered about the coin because the explanation is like this. Maxis a shekel is given a kapora, the half of a shekel that they gave. This was a forgiveness for the sin of ha'egel, the golden calf. Which the golden calf is the worst sin that you could possibly imagine. You can't even imagine such a sin like this, the golden calf. Was is given, which is a chait, which this was a sin from avodah zarah, idolatry. Hadzich Moshe Rabbeinu Moshe Rabbeinu wondered, how can a half a shekel bring forgiveness for idolatry? Now you have to realize why was the sin of the golden calf so bad? Because, as we said many times, the Jewish people heard directly from God 40 days earlier, don't worship idols. It's the second of the 10 commandments. And the Jewish people, according to all opinions, the second commandment, the first and the second commandment, they heard directly from God. So all the Jewish people heard directly from God, whatever that means, right? They heard God speak. Their souls spoke, their every atom in the world screamed out, don't worship idols. And 40 days later, they worshiped idols. Even more, worshiping idols essentially means that you're denying the oneness of God. You're saying God is not going to answer my prayers. I have to pray to a star or to a person or to a something. So that's a pretty bad sin. especially considering that they knew that it was wrong. And nevertheless, a half of a shekel forgives the whole thing. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was amazed about. And we also should be amazed. So, really, how did it work? Says the Rebbe, I'm going to explain. Mitzvah, Zainen, and the Dugma from Evorim. The commandments are like limbs. It says Punkt V in the Evorim, just like in a person's limbs from a mensch, Zainen for Chilukim, there are differences. As Zainen Evorim Pratim, there are individual limbs. Was Yeder from Zeich is ein Pratis Dikachayas from the Nefesh. Has a certain level from the soul. A person's right hand is irreplaceable, the right hand. Nothing is going to substitute the right hand. There are things that you can use in the place of your right hand. God forbid a person loses his right hand, loses his ear, loses. When they goof of very far under the tail, and sugim, there's two types of limbs. There's limbs that the soul depends on them, and that the person's life depends on them. And there are limbs which the soul does not depend on them. And there's what's called the general limbs, like for instance the brain, the heart. And ikar hashar, because in them there is the main resting of a person's soul. Life depends on that. The chayas from them, ganzen guf, this is the life of the whole body. Zoy zayin and oich faran, the zelbe chilukim in mitzvahs. So it is also in the commandments. Mitzvahs pratios and mitzvahs kololios. General commandments and specific commandments. Anochi lo yelecha, I am God that took you out of Egypt, and you shouldn't have any other idols. This is like the heart and the brains of Judaism. Zayin clothes. This includes the whole entire Torah. This relates to the essence of the soul, the essence of the Jews. This is the essence of the Torah, the essence of all creation. When in Zay and them hanged up the farbund mit Yidden with the Eibishter. With these commandments of I am God, in other words, believe in God and don't worship anything else. This is really the main connection of the Jews to God. The Rebbe, therefore, within the time when God had ungezogt said to give a half of a shekel for a kapara, to bring forgiveness from the sin of idolatry. This is a koper nafsho. This brings forgiveness for the soul. A kapara from the nefesh alain, from a person's soul. This reconnects the soul. Vuas hat angerirt der cheta egel, which the essence of the soul of every Jew was touched by the sin of the egel. It says that if the Jews would not have sinned with the golden calf, there would not be any death in the world. The death went away. Moshe Rabbeinu gewundert. Therefore, Moshe wondered, how can a half of a shekel be a forgiveness for this terrible sin? Darmi, therefore, now we can understand what it means, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, from the pasuk of Ki Tisa es Rosh Bnei Yisrael Lifkudehem. That's why it says, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Rav Chaim ben Attar. We learn his commentary in the Chumash class in the afternoon. By the way, come to the Chumash class in the afternoon. It's a good class. Come, you'll enjoy it. As their pasuk read, Vegen, the Histalkus from Tzadikim, Rosh Bnei Yisrael. That this, it says, Lifkudehem, it says, Ki Tisa et Rosh Bnei Yisrael. God, when you lift up the heads of the Jewish people. The simple meaning of this Ki Tisa means when you count, when you make a head count, you count the number of Jewish people. That's a simple meaning. But the a little bit deeper meaning means when you lift up the heads of the Jewish people. As a Zed Stalik, when a tzaddik dies, the tzaddik of that generation, when he dies, is es lifkudehem. Pikude means to be lacking something. Poked mishovecha, like it says lashon chisaron, like it says lo yipked mimenu ish, to be missing. Lifkudehem. From that is the sin. Why is it that tzaddikim die? Because the Jewish people sin, so the tzaddikim accept it on themselves, and that's why the tzaddikim, they die. Holy people. That's what it says. Ki tisa, God, when you take away the heads of the Jewish people, why lifkudehem? Because the Jewish people are missing something. They're not doing what they're supposed to be. In any case, all of the explanations, all of the commentary and the different interpretations of every sentence in the Torah, providing it's coming from a God-fearing person, they have a connection between one and the other. What is the connection between the Or HaChaim, namely that's talking about God when you take away the tzaddikim of the generation because the generation is sinning, and with the simple meaning of the sentence that you have to make a head count of all the Jewish people to know how many people there are, right? And what is the simple meaning of the sentence? The simple meaning of the sentence is that when you count, you want to make a census, what do they call it? The Jewish people, not a survey. What is it? A census. Anyway, to know the number of the Jewish people. So it says, don't count the people. Everybody should give a coin, and you count the coin. That's the simple meaning. Everybody gives a half a shekel, and you count the half a shekels. That's as happens. So it says, Ki tisad Rosh Bnei Yisrael. When you count the Jewish people, everyone should give a half a shekel. The Or HaChaim said, Ki tisad Rosh Bnei Yisrael. When you take away the heads of the Jewish people, why lifkudeim, not to count them, but because of what is another meaning. What is missing from them? The Jewish people are missing. They're doing sins. Therefore, you take away. What is the connection between these two things? Counting the Jewish people by giving a coin, and also when the tzaddikim, taking away the tzaddikim because of the sins. And also we have the third meaning, which is, we said before, that by means of giving this half shekel, it brings forgiveness for all the Jewish people, but the half shekel has to be from fire. We'll see. What is the connection between all this? Nor vibal, but because as Lloyd Pirish Apashut, the simple meaning is read it in Pasuk vegan dem chet avodah zorah. It's talking about that everybody. Why did everybody? You want to count the Jewish people? Everybody give a stick. Everybody make a mark on a wall. Why did everybody have to give the coin? So it's because this coin, this is a forgiveness for the sin of idolatry, a sin which is a general blemish on all the Jewish people. Therefore, it has a connection to the explanation of the Or HaChaim, which the Or HaChaim says that a general sin makes pikudehem, it makes a lacking in all of the Jewish people, like it is in the sin of the golden calf. As had gepoiled, that the sin of the golden calf brought about a descent in even Moses. Moshe. God said, we'll see. When did the Jewish people sin with the golden calf? At the end, Moshe went up on the Mount Sinai to receive all the explanation of the Torah. On the 6th day of Sivan, the Jewish people received the 10 commandments. And then Moshe went up on Mount Sinai to get the explanation of the 10 commandments and also the explanation of the whole Torah and the written Torah also, and to bring it down. At the end of that time, the Jewish people miscalculated and thought that Moses wasn't going to come back because he said 40 days, and they thought that the 40 days had ended. They didn't know it meant 40 complete days. They counted the half day. They thought that was also a day. And they worshiped the golden calf. By means of this brought Moshe down. The head of the Jewish people, Kitisa, God took away the head of the Jewish people. Chach Era lion had gorn knit, even though the Moses had absolutely nothing to do with the golden calf. He was up in heaven. He was up in the mountain. That's what God said. Lech raid, go down. And it means go down from your greatness. And the Jewish people brought Moses down. Because of the sin, brought into the world death. Was durach netinat haluchos, that by means of when God gave the first tablets, it was supposed to be cherut. They were carved out. But the word cherut also means to be free. They would have been freed from the angel of death. Cherut ala luchot. If the Jewish people had not sinned, in the Zohar it says there would be no death. As soon as they sinned with the golden calf, Hatzarich Mor, this again brought down into the world the sin of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Man, if you look in the Bible, man was created to live forever. Man was supposed to live forever. It was supposed to be that man would not get old. He would live. A man is a creation of God. He would be made in God's image, and there's work to be done in the world to elevate the world constantly. as every second would be brand new, every second a miracle. People wouldn't get old. As soon as man ate from the tree of knowledge, so he said, listen, I wanted to call the shots myself. God said, you want to call the shots yourself? So be separated from life. And people started dying. As soon as when God gave the Torah, he took away death again. When the Jewish people sinned with the golden calf, it brought back the sin of the tree of knowledge of evil. This brought death into the world. Therefore, Spiegel says this comes down finally into the same way into the the death of a tzaddik at that time. Tzaddik that's why tzaddikim die today, because of this general sin of the Jewish people that was back then that give the Jews the tendency to sin now. And what does it mean to do sins? To do what you want, and not to do what God wants. But nevertheless, we have to understand how, because that Moshe Rabbeinu was not, because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have any problems with what it meant to give a half of a shekel. That wasn't his question. He knew what a shekel was, and he knew what a half of a shekel was. The question is he wondered, how can a half of a shekel possibly bring forgiveness for the soul? As mitvos is bayim, the shaila is, if so, what type of an answer is this that God gave him, right? A coin. You want to know how a coin can bring forgiveness for such a terrible sin as the golden calf? Well, it's a coin made of fire. Oh, Moses said, oh, now I understand. Why did he understand? How did that answer anything? Right? You put the coin under the fire, you light it up. Oh, that's forgiveness. It's still the same. It's the same ridiculous proportion. How can a coin get rid of death? How can it be? Vedman is verstanden. We can understand according to a mashal, according to a what do you want it? A parable, a metaphor. Yeshomrim, the mashal stem from the Baal Shem Tov. It comes from the Baal Shem Tov. Once there was a person had learned the malacha from gold and silver, shmid rai. He learned how to be a gold and a silver smith. Und der was hat gelernt, and the person who taught him hat ihm gewesen wie zu tun, in all the details. Aber dem prat, one prat, aber dem prat, as unter dem gold and silver darf man und erlegen fire, that he should put fire underneath it. Hat im zu lieb dem Pashutkeit from dem Zach nicht gesagt. He didn't. The pupil would come in every morning into his teacher's store, the goldsmith, and the fire was already lit underneath, right? And he would teach him how to make it. The teacher thought it was such an obvious thing. You have to put fire underneath it. He didn't teach him to make a fire. And make a fire, you have to go to goldsmith school to learn that. Everybody can make a fire. He thought it was obvious. As der Talmud hat später nachgefallen alle Anweisungen. The pupil afterward did every single detail what the teacher told him. Und hat ausgelernt that he learned he was an excellent pupil. He learned every single detail. Hat nicht untergelegt kein fire, and he didn't put any fire underneath it. Is doch moving as the arbeit is gornis ausgekommen. He had no results. Und the gold and the silver remained exactly the same thing. Of course, it's a bit ridiculous to a thing like this, but nevertheless, you're going to see it's not so ridiculous. Das ist euch given their answer. This is the answer from God to Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu, what? Amatbeah shel eish. You have to do Judaism, but it has to be with fire. Thus, given a line, given the fire, the coin, we're going to see what the coin means. Why is that a coin? Why it has to be a coin? What's the thing of the coin? The coin is also a metaphor, just like the fire is a metaphor. Giving a coin is not going to fix up your soul. So verin from him a kapar that is going to bring forgiveness. Then men nutzt aber thereby fire. But if you add fire, men git dit matbea mit a koch, you do Judaism with an excitement and with fire, with warmness. Was kommt from etzem and Hashem, what comes from the essence of the soul, like it says, the lamp of God is the soul of man. The soul of every Jew is like a fire to serve God. Then if you light this up, then can the half of a shekel become a kapora for the soul. Then it can forgive the soul. And what exactly is this fire? How is it supposed to be? How do we get to it? What does it mean, a shekel? Why a half of a shekel? We'll find out, God willing, tomorrow. And this will make our Parshat Shkolim, our Shabbat, a more meaningful one. And now let's just take a short look at Yom Yom. What is the message for, daily message for today? I think this is also in English, but hold on. Okay. Today is what? Today is the 28th day of the month of Shvat. 28th day. Okay. We're learning in this Mishpatim, right? So there's a law. It says that when you see the donkey of your enemy suffering under its burden, and you think you should not help him, and rather you should, yes, help and work with him. Commandment. If you're walking on the street and you see there's your enemy, you can't stand him, and he's got a donkey and it's suffering under his burden, and the your friend, he can't unload it or load it, whatever it is. So it says you should go and help your enemy to put the burden back on. There's a little bit deeper meaning to this, because it's very unusual here in Israel. You see a Jew walking around with a donkey. I mean, there are some Arabs that have donkeys, but they usually know how to deal with them. We're talking about a Jew, a guy doesn't know how to deal with a donkey. Where are you going to find that? And he's got to put too much stuff on him, put too much burden on him, and the donkey is suffering. And you're supposed to help this fellow unload the donkey, make this donkey stand up, etc. Okay, so what does it say? This means something spiritual. What's a spiritual? When you see a donkey, chamor means physicality, chumriut. When a person sees the physicality of the body and realizes that it's of your enemy, that your body can be your biggest enemy because it stops you from thinking about the Creator and why you're here, and you see that it is suffering, right? Because the body hates the soul. The body only wants physical things. And you see that the body is suffering under its burden. What does it mean that God gives its burden? The burden of the soul is the body. The soul is supposed to refine the body by means of Torah and the commandments, but it is suffering under it. And it's not able to do it. The body is overpowering the soul. And you think that maybe what I have to do is not help my enemy, in other words, to help the body to do its work, to help refine it, that what? I'll start to fast and I'll start to hate my body. And that's because the enemy is my body. It says, don't do it. That's not a way to serve God by means of fasting and self-mortification. Ella azov ta'azovimo. You have to work with it, refine, purify the body, purify your character traits, and to make them more transparent. Don't break yourself or your body or your natural desires. You can break rather your connection to them. To listen to the desires of your body, refine yourself. That's the job. In others, instead of being miserable all the time, you have to be happy to serve God. Think about good, and that will refine the bad. Have a good day, everyone. 3:00, we learn Chumash with Meforshim. Very interesting. We're learning some of the laws, the 53 laws that are in this Torah portion. Have a good day with Mashiach now.